A single mom is having the worst morning of her life when her deadbeat ex shows up out of nowhere in a moment of pure panic. She grabs a hand of a complete stranger in a coffee shop and pretends he's her boyfriend. He plays along perfectly. She thinks she'll never see him again. Then she walks into her job interview an hour later, and he's the one sitting behind the desk. What starts as an act of desperation turns into the most unexpected chapter of life. But this billionaire CEO is carrying more pain than anyone could guess. A story about second chances, hidden wounds, and the family you build when you least expect it. Script. 6 years of single motherhood had taught Renee Carter how to survive chaos before breakfast. But this morning had her beat. Her daughter Lily had spilled orange juice down her only clean school uniform. The babysitter showed up 20 minutes late. And now Renee was sprinting toward the most important job interview of her life with wet hair and a racing heart. She ducked into a coffee shop to grab a coffee before facing the storm. That's when she saw him. Standing by the entrance, looking infuriatingly good in a tailored suit, was Daniel Pierce. The same Daniel who had vanished the second she told him she was pregnant. The man who hadn't looked back once in 6 years. And now, on the one morning she could not afford a single complication, he was standing between her and the door. There was no way out, no side exit, no excuse. Just him and her and 20 feet of coffee shop floor. So Renee did the only thing she could think of. She slid into the nearest open chair, looked at the total stranger sitting there, and said, loud enough for Daniel to hear, "I'm so sorry I'm late, honey." The man looked up, broad shoulders, an expensive suit, ice blue eyes wide with surprise. For one terrifying second, Renee thought he'd call her out right there. Instead, something shifted in his expression. Understanding, maybe even amusement. He set down his newspaper. "I was starting to think you stood me up," he said smoothly, like they'd done this 100 times before. "I already ordered your favorite." Relief flooded through her. From the corner of her eye, she watched Daniel notice her, recognition crossing his face. The stranger reached across the table and took her hand. His grip was warm, steady, like he'd done this before. "I'm Adrian, by the way," he murmured. "Adrian Cole." "Renee Carter," she whispered back. Thank you so much." Daniel was already walking toward them. "Renee? I thought that was you," he said, that same voice that used to make her stomach flip. Now just made her skin crawl. "Daniel, wow. It's been, 7 years?" 6 years and 8 months, he corrected, eyes flicking between her and Adrian. "You look good." Adrian rose to his full height, towering over Daniel by several inches. "Adrian Cole," he said, extending a hand like a man who owned the room. Daniel shook it, visibly rattled. "Renee's mentioned you," Adrian added, with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "How's the baby?" Daniel asked, almost hesitant. Renee felt her whole body go rigid. "Lily is 5 now. She's perfect." A heavy silence settled over the table until Adrian checked his watch. "Darling, we should go. You don't want to be late." Renee could have kissed him for the rescue. As they stood, Daniel tried one more time. "Maybe we could catch up sometime. I'd love to meet her." Before Renee could answer, Adrian slid his arm around her waist. "Renee and Lily have a pretty full schedule these days," he said, perfectly pleasant, utterly final. "Nice meeting you, Daniel." He kept his arm around her all the way to the sidewalk. Only once they were outside did Renee finally exhale. "I cannot thank you enough," she said, stepping back. "You just saved me from the worst conversation of my life." Adrian smiled, and it transformed his whole face. "Happy to help. Exes can be the worst." Something about his easy kindness made her open up more than she meant to. "He left the day I told him I was pregnant," she admitted. "Today is the first time he's seen me since." Adrian's expression darkened. Some men don't deserve the title of father. Then Renee glanced at her watch and gasped. Her interview. She was going to be late. "Where are you headed?" Adrian asked. "Maybe I can help." "Westfield Industries," she said. "Executive assistant position." Something flickered across his face. Gone before she could read it. "That's close. I'll walk with you." As they hurried down the street, Renee found herself oddly comfortable beside the stranger. She asked what he did. "Business management," he said vaguely, and turned the question back to her. She told him about her years of temp work, the flexibility she'd needed for Lily, and how badly she needed this job now that rent had gone up again. When they reached the gleaming glass tower of Westfield Industries, Adrian wished her luck. Then, just as she turned to go, he called her name. "Renee, that guy. He's a fool for walking away from you and your daughter." He was gone before she could respond. Inside, Renee was led to the 15th floor, her mind still spinning from the morning. The HR director, a warm woman named Patricia, explained that the final hiring decision belonged to the executive himself. "He's very particular," Patricia said. "Values competence above everything." Renee was shown into a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows. She smoothed her blazer, steadied her breathing, and turned toward the door as it opened, ready to make the best impression of her life. Her smile froze. Adrian Cole walked in, a leather portfolio under his arm, looking just as stunned as she felt. "Renee Carter," he said, voice shifting into something formal. What an unexpected pleasure. The pieces slammed into place. He wasn't just some businessman from a coffee shop. He was Adrian Cole, CEO of Westfield Industries, the man deciding whether she got this job. You're Adrian Cole," she stammered. "The Adrian Cole. I believe we already covered names," he said, a flicker of amusement breaking through. "Though I suppose I should apologize for not mentioning the CEO part. In fairness, you did ambush me." Despite her mortification, she laughed. Of all the strangers in that coffee shop, she grabbed her future boss. He opened her resume, his tone turning professional. "Tell me why you want to work at Westfield." She answered honestly. Admiration for the company, the need for stability after years of temp work, the desire to learn from someone at the top of the industry. He asked about the gaps in her resume. She explained without flinching that she was a single mother and Daniel had never been involved. Not until that morning. By the end of the interview, Adrian closed her file with something like respect. "Your performance this morning," he said, "show me you can think on your feet, handle the unexpected, and keep a secret. That's exactly what this job requires. Are you saying pretending to be my boyfriend worked in my favor? I'm saying the job is yours. Start Monday." Stunned, she shook his hand. "Thank you, Mr. Cole." "Adrian," he corrected. "We've already held hands in public, Renee. I think we're past formalities." She left his office in a daze, already composing the story in her head for her best friend Carmen. The story of how she'd accidentally hit on a billionaire to dodge her deadbeat ex. That weekend, Carmen nearly dropped her phone laughing. "Only you," she said, "would have cost a billionaire CEO to avoid a deadbeat ex." When she pulled up an article confirming Adrian's net worth, over $2 billion, self-made, never married, dubbed the city's most eligible bachelor, Renee felt the floor tilt beneath her. "I held hands with a billionaire," she whispered, "and now I'm his assistant." Monday came fast. Patricia walked her through security protocols, schedules, and Adrian's exacting preferences. Black coffee in the morning, green tea after lunch, zero tolerance for interruptions during strategy sessions. "He's intensely private," Patricia warned. "The press never stops digging. You'll need to be a gatekeeper." The day was a blur of meetings and calls, Renee scrambling to keep pace with Adrian's relentless focus. By late afternoon, she was finally finding her rhythm, until his office door opened and he stopped mid-sentence, staring past her in disbelief. Daniel was standing at her desk, holding roses. "Surprise," he said. "I found out where you worked. Thought maybe we could talk tonight. About us. About Lily. Mr. Donovan." Adrian's voice cut through the room, cold as steel. "How did you get past security?" Daniel faltered. "I told the receptionist I was delivering flowers." Adrian stepped fully into the room, gaze sharp. "Ms. Carter, were you expecting a personal visit?" "No, sir. Absolutely not." Adrian turned back to Daniel, voice dropping dangerously quiet. To disrupt her first week in a new job? To continue the pattern of appearing and disappearing whenever it suits you? Daniel tried to push back. "This is between me and Renee." But his bravado was already crumbling. Adrian pressed the security button without breaking eye contact. 2 guards arrived in seconds. "Escort Mr. Donovan out. He's not permitted back without express approval from my office. As Daniel was led away, Adrian turned to Renee, his hard expression softening. "Are you all right?" She nodded, still processing. 7 years ago, he said quietly, I promised myself I'd never allow harassment of any kind in this company. That includes ex-boyfriends with roses and empty apologies. There was something raw in his voice, something that told her this wasn't just policy. It was personal. The rest of the week passed without incident. Renee worked relentlessly to prove herself, staying late, preparing briefings before she was even asked. By Friday, Adrian was visibly impressed. "You've done well," he admitted. "Better than I expected." Then, almost offhand, he asked about Lily, the first time he'd mentioned her since the interview. "She's adjusting," Renee said, "missing our mornings together. But she's thrilled she finally gets to join the after-school art program." Something shifted in his expression. Children are remarkably resilient. Then, quieter, "Do you have other family helping you?" "Just Carmen. It's been me and Lily for a long time." He didn't answer right away. Before she could ask anything more, his phone rang and the moment closed. That Saturday, walking Lily to Carmen's cafe for hot chocolate, Renee spotted a familiar figure across the street, Adrian, sitting alone on a park bench, watching children play with an unreadable expression. Lily waved before Renee could stop her, and Adrian looked up surprised, then raised a hand in greeting. In jeans and a sweater, he looked entirely different, younger, less armored. Lily marched right up to him. "I'm 5 3/4, she announced. "Mommy says you're her boss." "That's correct," Adrian said, crouching slightly to shake her hand with full seriousness. "I'm Adrian Cole. Do you like slides?" Lily asked, pointing at the playground. "The big one's super fast if you sit on the slippery party jacket." A real smile broke across his face, the kind Renee hadn't seen in the office. "Is that your professional recommendation?" "I'm an expert," Lily said solemnly. When Carmen spotted them and insisted Adrian join them for coffee, he surprised everyone by saying yes. They spent the next hour in Carmen's cozy cafe, Lily devouring a cinnamon roll, while Adrian, unguarded and relaxed, helped her build a tower out of sugar packets. Renee watched the side of her billionaire boss she never expected to see. Patient, warm, present. Later, after he left for an urgent call, Lily turned to her mother. "He's nice," she said. "His eyes get happy when he laughs." Carmen slid into the empty seat, eyes gleaming. "That man is interested in you." "Don't be ridiculous," Renee said. "He's my boss." "Tell that to someone who didn't just watch him with your daughter," Carmen said. That man was smitten. Monday brought new complications. Lily woke with fever, and by the time Renee made it to the office, it was nearly noon, expecting frustration. Instead, she found a note in Adrian's handwriting. "Family comes first. Take the time you need." It was such a small thing, but after years of employers treating her motherhood as a liability, it meant everything. That afternoon, Adrian asked about Lily without hesitation. Then he pulled her into an urgent merger meeting, a tense, high-stakes negotiation where they moved together like they'd been partners for years, not days. Afterward, when an ex-girlfriend named Diane lingered to flirt, Adrian deflected smoothly, citing a fake conference call. Renee couldn't resist teasing him about it. For the first time, she saw him laugh, really laugh. Then he mentioned a charity gala that weekend. "I'd like you there." "As my assistant," he clarified quickly, when her face fell for half a second too long. "These events are part business. I need someone managing introductions." He added that the company would cover formal attire and that he'd arranged a car service to ease her mornings with Lily. That evening, leaving the office, Renee's phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "We need to talk about Lily. It's important." A cold dread settled in her stomach. After 6 years of silence, what could possibly be so urgent now? By morning, 3 more texts had piled up, each more frantic. "It's about her health. Please, Renee. I know I have no right to ask." Against her better judgment, she agreed to meet him for lunch. When she arrived, Daniel looked uncharacteristically nervous. He admitted he'd been quietly watching Lily's photos on Carmen's social media for over a year, working up the nerve to reach out. Then he told her the real reason. His mother had been diagnosed with a hereditary heart condition. He'd been tested. He was a carrier, which meant there was a 50% chance Lily had inherited it too. The anger in Renee's chest gave way to fear. She thanked him coldly but sincerely and agreed to get Lily tested. Daniel offered to help with costs, asked tentatively about seeing his daughter. Renee told him she considered supervised visits. Nothing more. Not yet. As she stood to leave, Daniel added one more thing. That guy, your boss. I looked him up. He's got a reputation. Ruthless. Cuts people loose the second they're no longer useful. You forfeited the right to worry about my life 6 years ago, Renee said and walked out. Back at the office, she buried herself in research on the condition and scheduled Lily's appointment. That night, when Adrian found her still at her desk past 7, he asked what was wrong. She told him everything. Daniel's diagnosis, the genetic risk, and finally, hesitantly, what Daniel had said about him. Something shifted in Adrian's face. I grew up in the foster system, Renee, he said quietly. I learned early that depending on people is a dangerous gamble. That shaped everything, my business, and how I let people in. The revelation stunned her. This billionaire, this man who commanded boardrooms, had grown up with nothing and no one. Is that why you were at the park? She asked, remembering his solitary figure on the bench. Something from your childhood? Perceptive, he said, with a sad smile. That property nearby, it was my last foster home. I'm turning it into transitional housing for kids aging out of the system. Every piece clicked into place. His fury at Daniel, his quiet understanding of her struggles, the careful kindness hidden under his professional armor. Adrian, that's incredible, she said. He brushed off the praise, clearly uncomfortable. It's necessary. The system fails these kids every day. You should go home to Lily, he said, retreating gently back into his role as boss. But something between them had shifted, and they both knew it. Saturday night arrived, and Renee barely recognized herself in the midnight blue gown Carmen had helped her pick out. The gala was held in a grand, glittering ballroom, the kind of place Renee had only seen in movies. Old money, diamonds, men in tuxedos worth more than her rent. Adrian was waiting in the lobby, and when he saw her, his eyes widened. You look remarkable, he said. All evening, Renee played her role perfectly, remembering names, prompting him on business details, fielding nosy questions from socialites. Adrian introduced her simply as his assistant, but the speculative looks from other guests suggested no one quite believed that was a whole story. His hand kept finding the small of her back, guiding her through the crowd, protective, and something more. During a quiet moment on the terrace, an elegant older woman approached her. I'm Eleanor Westfield, she said, Adrian's former mother-in-law. Renee's breath caught. Adrian had been married. He hasn't told you, Eleanor said, studying her with interest. Interesting. Connor doesn't bring women to these events unless they matter to him. In 6 years, you're the first. Before Renee could process this, Adrian appeared, his expression sharpening when he saw them together. He steered her away under the guise of business, tension radiating from him the entire walk back inside. Eleanor mentioned someone named Catherine. Renee finally said. Adrian stopped walking. For a long moment, she thought he'd deflect. Then his shoulders dropped. My wife, he said quietly. She died 6 years ago. The words hit Renee like a physical blow. Adrian, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. There was no reason for you two, he said, with a sadness that broke her heart. The rest of the night passed in a haze of new understanding. A foster child who built an empire, a widower who'd spent 6 years keeping the world at arm's length. When his driver finally took her home, Adrian held her hand a moment too long before letting go. Thank you for tonight, he said, for making these events bearable again. In the weeks that followed, their professional relationship deepened into something neither of them named out loud. Shared lunches, late-night strategizing, Adrian asking, unprompted, how Lily's art class was going. And through it all, Renee felt herself falling for this guarded, complicated man, even knowing how foolish it might be. Then came the storm. A brutal nor'easter slammed into the city without warning, shutting down transit and schools alike. With nowhere else for Lily to go, Renee brought her to the office. Adrian, to her surprise, didn't mind at all. "We're basically the only ones here anyway," he said. As the storm worsened, the power failed completely, then flickered back as emergency generators kicked in. Lily, frightened by the dark, ran to her mother. Adrian crouched beside her with a gentle smile. "When I was your age and scared of storms," he said, "I used to build blanket forts." What followed was a side of Adrian Cole that Renee had never seen. Patient, playful, utterly unguarded. He built an elaborate fort from office chairs and conference room blankets, ordered food from one of the few restaurants still open, and the three of them ate dinner together as the storm raged outside. After Lily fell asleep, Adrian looked down at her with a tenderness that undid Renee completely. "She reminds me there's more to life than quarterly reports," he murmured. Then, in the quiet dark, he told her the rest. "Catherine and I were trying to have a child when she got sick. Ovarian cancer. By the time they found it, it was too late. I'm so sorry, Adrian. After she died, I buried myself in work. Told myself it was enough." His eyes met hers. "It wasn't. The morning you ambushed me in that coffee shop, it was the first real human connection I'd let myself have in years." Renee's heart pounded. "I know the timing is complicated," he continued. "I'm your boss. You're building a life for yourself and Lily. But you've awakened something in me I thought died with Catherine." She didn't overthink it. She leaned in and kissed him, gentle at first, then deeper as his hand came up to cradle her face. When they finally pulled apart, she saw in his eyes the same mix of fear and hope she felt in her own chest. "Where do we go from here?" she whispered. "I don't know exactly," he said, "but I'd like to find out, if you would." She glanced at Lily, sleeping peacefully nearby, then back at this remarkable man who had walked into her life through the strangest twist of fate. "I'd like that too." The next morning, as the city emerged washed clean by the storm, Renee watched Adrian carefully carry a still-sleeping Lily to the couch in his office, holding her like something precious. The tenderness in that simple act said more than words ever could. "What are you thinking?" he asked, catching her watching him. Renee smiled, thinking back to a frantic morning, a desperate lie, and a stranger's hand closing around hers. That sometimes the most important journeys begin with a desperate act in a coffee shop. Adrian's answering smile was unguarded, real, like sunlight breaking through clouds. "In that case," he said, taking her hand, "I'm very glad you chose my table.